In February, the US and Iran actually began indirect nuclear negotiations in Oman. A second round was planned for Geneva.
So they were talking and preparing to fight at the same time?
And just one day before the attack, on February 27th, Oman's foreign minister announced a breakthrough. He said peace was within reach.
And then the bombs fell. Welcome to the Exchange Show, the podcast where two voices unpack the world's biggest stories, without the spin, without the agenda. Just the exchange. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Alex. And today, honestly, this is the episode we hoped we'd never have to make.
We're talking about the war with Iran. The US and Israel launched strikes on February 28, 2026. And 25 days in, the world is still on fire, literally and figuratively.
Before we get into what's happening now, we need to go back. Because this didn't start on February 28th. This has been building for decades.
So, Alex, give us the 30-second history lesson.
Okay, Iran and the US have been in a cold conflict since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Iran has long supported militant groups across the Middle East, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen. They call it the axis of resistance. Israel sees this as an existential threat, and the US largely agrees.
And then there's the nuclear issue.
Exactly. Iran has been enriching uranium for years. They say it's for peaceful energy. The US and Israel say it's a cover for building a bomb. In 2015, there was a landmark deal, the JCPOA, that froze Iran's program in exchange for lifting sanctions. But in 2018, Trump pulled out of it.
Which basically kicked off the current spiral.
Right. After the US withdrew, Iran gradually stopped playing by the rules of that deal. By mid-2025, the IAEA, the UN's nuclear watchdog, reported Iran had enriched enough uranium to potentially build 9 nuclear warheads.
9. That's not a small number. Now, before we get to 2026, we have to talk about what happened in June 2025, what Trump famously called the 12-day war.
This was basically the opening act. On June 13, 2025, Israel launched a surprise attack on Iran, hitting nuclear facilities, military sites, killing scientists, generals, politicians. Iran retaliated with over 550 ballistic missiles and more than 1,000 drones.
And the US got involved even then.
The US intercepted Iranian attacks and bombed 3 of Iran's nuclear sites on June 22. Then a ceasefire was brokered on June 24. Trump announced it. He compared himself to the 1967 Six-Day War, said it proved strength works.
But the ceasefire didn't hold. Or at least, it didn't solve anything.
Not at all. Israel's intelligence believed Iran was already rebuilding. And Iran was furious. The seeds of February 2026 were planted right there.
So fast forward to early 2026. What was the atmosphere like?
Incredibly tense, but also, and this is the irony, cautiously hopeful on the diplomatic front. In January 2026, massive protests erupted across Iran. Thousands took to the streets, angry about the economy, crumbling infrastructure, a government they felt had failed them.
And the Iranian government cracked down hard.
Brutally, thousands of protesters were reportedly killed by security forces. This weakened the regime's image internationally and domestically.
Meanwhile, Trump is watching this and sees an opportunity.
He starts making threats. He orders the largest U.S. military buildup in the Middle East since the 2003 Iraq invasion. But then, this is crucial. In February, the US and Iran actually began indirect nuclear negotiations in Oman. A second round was planned for Geneva.
So they were talking and preparing to fight at the same time?
Exactly. And just one day before the attack, on February 27th, Oman's foreign minister announced a breakthrough. He said Iran had agreed to never stockpile enriched uranium and to full IAEA verification. He said peace was within reach.
And then the bombs fell. This is the question everyone is asking. If there were active peace talks, why attack?
The Trump administration has given multiple, sometimes conflicting explanations. Officially, to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, to destroy its ballistic missile program, to eliminate the threat to U.S. forces in the region.
But critics are calling that a cover story.
Some analysts point to regime change as the real goal. Trump officials have also cited Iran's natural resources. There's been talk about securing oil and bringing the Iranian opposition to power.
And then there's Israel's perspective, which is somewhat different.
Israel's position has always been clearer and more consistent. They will never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Full stop. Netanyahu has been pushing for this for years. The protests inside Iran and the weakened state of the regime in early 2026 gave Israel what it saw as a historic window.
Strike when the enemy is down.
Essentially, the thinking was, the regime is internally weak. Their proxy network is already damaged from 2024 and 2025, and their nuclear program is partially degraded. Now is the moment.
But Sarah, the skeptic in me asks, was this actually about defense, or was it aggression dressed up as defense? Let's talk about what's happening on the ground. Because behind all these geopolitical chess moves are real people.
The numbers are staggering. As of now, preliminary reports put the death toll in Iran at around 1,500. At least 18 people killed in Israel from Iranian retaliatory strikes, 13 U.S. soldiers killed, and 21 deaths in Gulf states.
And Iran has been hitting back, not just at Israel, but at U.S. bases across the region. Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia.
Iran declared all U.S. military installations legitimate targets. The Strait of Hormuz, through which about 20% of the world's oil passes, has been effectively closed. Oil prices have spiked. Qatar even shut down LNG production from one of the world's largest facilities.
So this is not just a regional conflict anymore. This has global economic consequences.
The IMF has warned that every 10% increase in energy prices could push global inflation up by nearly 0.5%. Bangladesh is closing universities early. Pakistan declared a 4-day workweek. This is hitting ordinary people everywhere.
And the humanitarian situation inside Iran?
Deeply alarming. The WHO says at least 18 hospitals and health facilities have been struck. The Iranian Red Crescent reports over 82,000 civilian structures damaged or destroyed. A strike on a girls' elementary school in the city of Minab killed more than 170 people, mostly children.
That's a number I can't just move past. 170 children.
No one should.
So today is day 27. What does the landscape look like?
Complicated. Trump has claimed peace talks are underway. Iran has denied it. Trump issued a 48-hour ultimatum for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, then extended it 5 days. He's ordered a pause on strikes against Iranian power plants.
Which sounds like someone looking for an exit ramp.
Exactly what analysts are saying. The war has become domestically unpopular in the U.S. Fuel prices are rising. And despite all the military firepower, Iran is not surrendering. They've named new leadership to replace those killed. They're projecting defiance.
And Iran's calculation?
They believe they can outlast the U.S. and Israel in a war of attrition. They're betting that America doesn't have the political will for a prolonged conflict, and that rising oil prices will eventually force Washington to negotiate.
Meanwhile, Lebanon has been pulled in. The Houthis are still launching drones. Iraq is being hit.
It's a regional war now, even if no one wants to call it that officially.
So let me ask you directly, Alex, do you think this war achieves what the U.S. and Israel wanted?
I think Israel has achieved some of its military goals, degrading Iran's missile program, eliminating the supreme leader, weakening the nuclear infrastructure. Whether it achieves regime change or a more compliant Iran, that's far less clear. History doesn't have many examples of bombing a country into friendship.
And from my side, the human cost, the diplomatic wreckage, the economic fallout, I keep coming back to that Omani foreign minister saying peace was within reach. We'll never know if that was real. But we do know it was abandoned.
Wars are easy to start and very hard to stop. That's the lesson of every conflict before this one.
And the people paying the price, as always, are ordinary Iranians, ordinary Israelis, Gulf workers, and families around the world watching their energy bills climb.
This story is far from over. We'll keep covering it.
Thanks for watching the Exchange Show. If this episode helped you understand what's happening, share it with someone who's trying to make sense of it all.